Welcome to the Real People, Real Business Show. My name is Stephanie Hayes, and I'm a business strategist and coach who loves to speak to like-minded entrepreneurs to share their real stories and the gritty details on building their businesses. On this show, you won't hear about the glamorized entrepreneurship journeys that you see online. You won't be told how to make six figures in 6 weeks. Instead, you can expect to hear real, vulnerable, and inspiring stories that you can relate to that have helped create the foundation for each of our guests' businesses. Goodbye, boss babes. Hello, real-life entrepreneurs. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Lianne Kim. Lianne is a business coach and strategist dedicated to helping mompreneurs build profitable and passion-powered businesses. From her renowned podcast, The Business of Thinking Big, to her Amazon best-selling book, not to mention her online community, Mamas & Co., it's clear Lianne thrives to support mom bosses. So welcome to the show, Lianne, and thanks so much for taking the time to share your story today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's dive right in. Tell us how you got to where you are today. What's the story?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a minute?
I have like 60 minutes.
So I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard that.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. I had a career in sales and marketing, but primarily sales in the travel and leisure space. And after having kids, my life changed. And all of a sudden I realized that I didn't really want to spend my working hours slaving away for somebody else's dream. And that's exactly what I had done up until that point. In fact, ironically enough, I had worked for 3 different male entrepreneurs as like my primary jobs out of post-secondary school. I learned a ton, but I also realized that I was making somebody else millions of dollars a year, and I was seeing so little of that. And so when I had my babies, like I had them very close together, and I had this little side hustle at the time. I had an art business making custom growth charts for children. I paint acrylics, and I was having fun one day and I realized, oh, I could create this cool product that's a 3-foot long canvas that people would hang on their wall. And that way they could write their kids' heights on a beautiful piece of art instead of on a door frame, which is where most of us moms write their kids' heights. And that way, if they moved, they could take the piece of art with them. Well, I thought this was a brilliant idea. And sure enough, it caught on. And as a result, I became a business owner, and I knew nothing about running a business. So I posted in a local moms Facebook group, hey, do any of you mamas have a business and want to get together for a glass of wine? Well, they sure did. And so we went to the pub up the street, and it was one of those nights here in Toronto. We had a snowstorm, a freak snowstorm in November, which is pretty early for us. And I remember thinking, oh my God, no one's going to come. And so I messaged the group. I said, hey, I'm still going to go. So if you still want to join me for a glass of wine, talk about business, I'll see you there. And 7 women came out in a snowstorm. And that's how I knew I had landed on my thing. And so quickly, I realized what I wanted to do, which was coach these women on how to be better at sales. I had spent 15 years in sales. I knew how to sell. A lot of these women were great at what they did, but they didn't know how to sell. And so over the next couple of months, couple of years, I dabbled with coaching, consulting, different models. And I realized this is what I love. I want to help women business owners build profitable businesses that light them up to no end. And that's what I'm still doing today.
Okay, but we skipped a whole bunch of parts there because you've now gone from growth charts. By the way, my son is 12 years old and he's 6 feet tall. So I hope your growth chart would expand.
Yeah, so they hang on the wall, and I would ask the parents, can you tell me how tall you think your child is going to be? Or can you tell me how tall you and your husband are? So if they were 6 feet tall, I would measure it so that it would sit at the 6 foot tall mark, and they would hang it on. So essentially it's kind of a neat thing because you can take it with you. And if they move it around the room, they can, move it around. But yeah, it was a neat product at the time. Nobody had created something like this that I know of that actually hangs on the wall. And they had to do a little bit of math too to figure it out. They had to measure it and all that stuff before they hung it, but I gave them instructions. Yeah, I was thinking back, it was a really, really kind of out of the box idea that I hadn't seen anyone doing. And I loved it. But to be honest with you, the minute that I changed my mind on what I wanted to do with my life, because I thought, oh, I could do this. I could make money at this. I was making money. I started to get shoulder pain from painting these massive long canvases like this. And so I realized, oh, this is not scalable. It's fun. It's creative. I love that I'm filling this need for parents, but it's not scalable. And so in the interim, what I had been doing was kind of doing some speaking on sales and marketing inside my own little Facebook group that kind of blossomed from 0 to 300 women in a very quick time, because at that time I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I wanted to be a business coach. I didn't know that there was such a need, but I started to identify these little gaps. And so I said, okay, if these women need to know about sales, I'm willing to teach them. Let's figure out how we can do this. So that's kind of a little bit how the transition happened.
I love that you're bringing this up, because there's a real feeling out there in the business world that, in order to scale, you have to create products. And my whole business is about helping you build assets within a service-based business. And so you're kind of going in the opposite direction, actually this product company is not going to scale. And I have a stronger passion, a stronger drive to create something else. So you had a product business, and what you learned was that actually wasn't going to scale. And you realized that your passion was to serve these women, these moms who are in business already, and sort of fill a gap there. And now look where you are. You have this blossoming community full of mompreneurs. So what was that journey like? How did you get from the idea to the growth to where you are right now? And how did that evolve?
Oh, yeah, that's a great story. It was super messy. Because I didn't really have a plan. As I say, I kind of stumbled upon this great thing. And so that first night, coming back from the pub, after the 7 of us met and we talked about business, we talked about kids, talked about trying to integrate all of this stuff, I could not sleep. I was just on fire with all these ideas. And a lot of it was ways to connect these women with other great women. It was ideas of ways to bring them together. It was events that I wanted to throw. It was all of the sort of the creative muscles were firing on full force. And I just knew in my gut that I stumbled upon something great. But at the time, so I'd just gone back to work full time. I had 2 kids in daycare. I was working from home for the first time ever. And I had this side hustle that I wasn't quite ready to give up. I had this community that had started. The women kept joining the Facebook group. We were trying to meet up monthly as much as we can. And I will tell you, it was so fun and wild looking back, but it was exhausting. I was so driven and so lit up that I was pushing myself to burnout. I was already working full-time hours. And then when I wasn't working on my day job, I was working on my business, my community. And then eventually what happened is I was coaching a few women in their businesses, but very minimally, because I just wanted to get proof of concept. So I was literally saying, why don't you pay me for a couple of hours and I'll gladly help you out. A lot of these women didn't have clear sales processes. They didn't understand their sales cycle, the customer journey. And so I had a lot of knowledge in this area that I wanted to pass on, but I didn't know how to put together a coaching package or anything like that. I didn't even know that was exactly what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to help people. And I knew that eventually, if I was going to take this journey and become, a coach or consultant, I would need proof of concept. So I was coaching these women. I'll never forget. Some of them were local to me, and I was coaching them at my kitchen table on my 90-minute lunch hour, whenever I could fit them in between this and that. And I just had this feeling like I could make a go of it. I can't quite explain it because I'd only ever been a day job gal. At this point I was 40 and I'd worked for a really long time. I loved what I did. I just didn't love it as much as I used to. I loved this new thing way more. And so there just came a point where I said, I want to see if I can do this. I don't know that I can. I'm not certain, but I think I have what it takes to be a full-time entrepreneur. I think I have what it takes to be self-employed. And I could probably, if I really work at it, I could probably make what I was making in the day job, which is what everybody tells themselves, of course. And so that was like, even just getting to that point where I had enough confidence in myself to leave a day job, to leave like a pretty reliable salary plus commission. That was a big journey for me, I'd say. And it took a while, from starting the community to being ready to leave my day job was 2 whole years. And as I say, like I was coaching people here and there, wherever I could. That was 2 whole years until I felt confident enough to make the leap. So I will say, if there's anyone listening to this who hasn't made the leap yet, or they are, they still have contract work, they still have freelance work, and it's paying the bills, I see you and I feel that pressure big time. I know what that's like to not quite be ready to go all in on the dream. But that's the decision that I had to make because there just weren't enough hours in the day.
I was gonna say like 2 hours, 2 years is sounds pretty good to me, actually. Sounds well, it does. I think a lot of people are sold this dream that 6 months and six figures, and we should be hitting these ridiculous milestones. But what I know and what I've seen with most entrepreneurs is that it takes a while, and the biggest break we can give ourselves is to just accept that and stop putting the pressure on ourselves that it has to be something other than what's natural, right? Especially if you're working and you've got kids and everything, all the other demands of life. It's okay for things to take what I think is an average amount of time.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I think I was just impatient because for my whole life, I have felt like I was this bundle of potential. And I kept stumbling upon these jobs where I felt like people weren't appreciating my gifts and my talents. And I often felt like I was being not overlooked, but undervalued in the traditional workspace. So when the time came that I finally found my thing and I was like, oh, this is it, I just wanted to go full tilt. But there were all these roadblocks in the way. For one, I had 2 small kids and I wanted to spend time with them. I was very clear, because you and I know the celebrity business coaches that have these empires, and maybe they're okay with it, but I wanted to spend time with my kids when they were little. I wanted to have those hours in the evening, on the weekends. I did not want to be tethered to my phone or my laptop. I was very intentional about that. And so because of that, I probably didn't grow as fast as a lot of other people who either don't have kids or, a lot of big name coaches and consultants maybe don't have kids full time. They're stepmoms, but it's not, they're not in it all day, every day the way I was. And again, my kids were, when I started the community, they were 1 and 3. So super little. And I just I couldn't see a clear path to creating more hours in the day. And then the other roadblock was my partner, who is amazing in every way, but he's very conservative. He's not a risk taker. And to be clear, neither was I up until this point. I had always been very careful with money, very play it safe. But the day came where I was about 6 months away from leaving my job, and I made the decision in my mind and my heart. And I said, I'm going to do this. I don't know that I can make it work, but I think I can. And I want you to support me. And he said he did, but for a long time, there was this weird energy between us. And I was like, okay, I just got to ask, what's the deal? Because this is happening. Like, I'm about to give my notice now. The days are creeping up closer and closer, and you don't seem all that supportive. So what's going on? And he said, we just got to a place in our lives where you're making good money and we're doing okay financially. And I'm scared that we're going to lose all that. And so I give him credit to, having the courage to be honest with me about what was going on in his mind. My husband is Korean. He's the son of 2 immigrants. And, he just was fearful. He was fearful that we would lose our livelihoods over this risk. And so I had a choice to make. I had to decide whether I believed in me enough to go forward, or whether I would kind of listen to this fear and let it stop me and keep playing safe. And this is what I said to him. I said, I love you so much. and I believe that I can do this. And I need you to give me 2 years. We have enough savings. We're going to be okay, but I need you to give me 2 years. And if in 2 years I can't make a go of this business, I will go and get a sales job again. I make you that promise. And that didn't happen, thankfully. And it took a lot less than 2 years to get where I needed to get. But again, I'd done a lot of the groundwork before. I was audience building. I was, learning how to be good at content. If you can be good at content, I don't know. Some days I'm just like, it's kind of just what the algorithm's doing, isn't it? But yeah, that was a tough moment to overcome and move through as a family.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on my own for a very long time, so never had to really sort of make that decision. But I would imagine that, someone else's fears and someone else's concerns have to be yours as well when you're so tightly coupled, right? And I think it's amazing that you were able to communicate clearly enough and, get to that place where it worked out. And so here you are, and the community has been growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what has made it grow? Like, what has been the engine behind that growth?
So yeah, the community evolved and changed over time. It used to be this sort of fun, free Facebook group, and very quickly I realized, I'm putting way too much work in to keep everything free. And so we rejig things after probably, the first or second year. We kind of restructured things a little bit. One of the things that made it grow was actually, becoming a full-on membership, which I didn't even know what that was. But charging appropriately for the kind of guidance and support we were giving in the community. That was a big game changer, because what happened was we lost all of these people that were kind of in it for not the right reasons. The more we asked them to commit, it just became very clear who our right audience was. It was these, they were hungry, they were loving the content, they were loving the coaching, they were bringing their friends, and they had no problem with the fees. And then there was this other group of people who were like, can you believe she wants to charge for this? I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that you're getting coaching and support and guidance and community and building relationships, and you want it all for free? So there was a couple moments where we had to take hard stances. We had to let people leave, exit people out of the community. So, I would say this is probably my maybe biggest tip of the day. Have high standards of who you let in your business. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean, charging amounts that you don't feel comfortable with or that no one will pay. Like, you have to be sensible about it, of course, but keep those standards high, and don't settle for anything less than true dream clients. And if you do that, the business will actually grow faster. But we all think, if I don't say yes to everyone who wants to work with me, I'll be closing a door, and my business will be, it'll go down. But it's the other way around, right? You hold your standards high, the right ones come running and bring their friends, and the wrong ones fall away. The right ones get you, and they stay longer, and they invest in themselves, and the business goes up. So, that was one of the biggies for me, for sure.
I am so glad. I'm sitting here going, yes, I am so glad that you said this. A couple of things. So I have a bunch of clients who are building memberships, and there's this sort of dream out there that we build a membership and it's going to be scalable and it's going to be kind of like passive income. And what I know is that is like, memberships can be almost more work than other business models. They're a lot to maintain. You cannot launch a membership without a large audience. I mean, you can, but the chances of that growing or being successful are like, it's hard, right? It requires a lot of care and feeding. So yes, I mean, eventually you can get to a point where it's a scalable business model, but it is very, very labor intensive. So that was like the one thing I wanted you to comment on. And then the other thing is I just love to hear you say this, because there is a real tendency out there to be pulled back into this idea that everything should be free or cheap. And that if I price things cheaply, I'm going to get more people in. But actually, depending on what services you're offering in your brand, you're actually going to confuse people, right? And the right people who will come in, I find that the people who get something at a discount or at a very low price actually have higher expectations and higher needs than those who are showing up and investing in something that sort of matches what they're expecting to do for themselves.
100%. I could not agree more. And it's those people that are going to suck your energy dry, and you'll end up having to spend so much time and energy trying to serve people that, if you're really honest, you don't even want to be serving these people, but you've built this thing that you're now sort of kind of a victim of your own, beast that you built. And I think we have to be really careful. I always had big numbers in the community, and maybe that's because it started as free, but and then it went to $20 a year. That was the first increase we made, and half the people left because they couldn't handle paying $20 for a year. Again, to be clear, I did not know what a membership was. I did not know that that's what I had. And then, we increased it to $50 and then $100. Looking back, I wish I had just completely started over and built the thing differently. But you don't know what you don't know. And so with every iteration of this, we also operated on a calendar year model. So everyone started in January, everyone completed in December, and they had to renew. And that was awful, because every year, January 1st, we had to go in and kick out a bunch of people in the community that decided not to renew. I mean, what a terrible way to start your year. It was just energy sucking is really the best way to describe it. And so now that's not how we operate at all. People join the community throughout the year. Most of the people who join our community come in through our affiliates. Our affiliates are paid very well. They're all our own members who are recommending us to their people. And so we have found these really light and joyful ways of growing the membership over time, bringing in more of the right people. We do a couple of virtual launches a year. And then we have one large event in October called MamaCon here in Toronto. It's our annual conference for mama entrepreneurs. And that's another entry point for people to join the community. But again, it took us a few rounds of this to figure out what worked, what didn't. I mean, we had launches that failed where we wanted 50 new members. We got 7, like that's the reality of digital launches. And it's the stuff that nobody's talking about. And that's what really eats me alive. And it's also one of the reasons why I don't advise most coaches have an entirely digital business, because it doesn't work for most people unless you have a massive audience. Yeah. And again, that's how people consume. I have people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They don't want to be in a membership. They want to work with me one-on-one. So we have space for that, but very few one-on-ones. We have space for, in our 6-figure mastermind, we bring women together who are already past the 6-figure hurdle, but we're not taking hundreds a year. We have a dozen in there, 13 actually. My baker's dozen this right now as we speak. And so, we're really selective about who we want to join what. We know which one of our programs. This is another thing, like as coaches and consultants, you have to know what is the best way to get your people results. And for some people, it is just join the community at the basic, right now, as the time of recording this, we charge $597 for the year or $59 a month. That is the best price you'll get for business coaching pretty much anywhere, I think, if you're a mom entrepreneur, because that's who our community is geared towards. But, they're not everyone's going to be a fit for your high ticket. And doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the offer. It just means that, we have to be careful who we're enrolling in what. And I'm always really clear. Sometimes I'll say like, oh, this group would really benefit from your knowledge, but you're too advanced for the group. You're not going to get anything out of it. So I can't in good faith enroll you in that program, even though it might be what attracted you to me, So this is one of the things that I think we miss with a strictly online businesses. We miss these conversations, and we miss really understanding what our people need to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I often encourage my clients to start with one-on-one, because it helps them very, very quickly get to know this ideal client that they're working with, and, build out from there and grow from there. A lot of people do start, kind of in the way that you did, where they build an audience first, right? And they build a kind of a free resource, a blog or a group, or, that kind of thing. But I think it's true that it's a little bit more difficult to become intimately familiar with your client when you're not having conversations. Like when I work with my clients, we are talking every day. I develop very deep relationships with my clients. All my offers are higher ticket. That's the kind of relationship, and I can tell you everything about them, right? So if down the road I wanted to build some, larger scale offering, I feel like I would have a really good sense of who those people are. Now, can you get that when you start there? For sure, but it depends how intimately involved you are with the community and with who's in it. So I think that there's a little bit of of miscommunication in the industry around where to start. And I don't think membership is the place that you start.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. We did it completely backwards and not intentionally. But funnily enough, one-on-one is how I hit six figures. It's what I focused on when that time came. And I would agree with you completely. There are great benefits of being able to sell one-on-one coaching and serve people in that capacity. It's highly portable. You could take it anywhere. I'm a fan of coaching virtually. Like, I know some people really like coaching in person, but that just wouldn't have worked for me and my family. And there's just, you get to dial it up. If you want more clients, you have more capacity. If you don't, you can dial it down. And that was, one of the things we haven't talked about yet, but I'd love to kind of go here, if you're okay with it, is, what happens when there's a loss, or what happens when you get derailed. And so, my father passed away about a year ago now. And when that happened, my business was extremely resilient, and it was in a great place to be able to step away and go and be with my family, but only because 4 years before that, he got very sick, very unexpectedly, and I was not prepared. And the business was a mess. And I remember feeling so terrified that I was going to lose my business, but also so guilty that I was thinking about my business when I should have been thinking about my dad. And so, the first time, it was very sudden. I thought he was going to die. We had no notice. And then luckily he lived another 4 years and got well and had great memories with my kids. And I'm so grateful. But, one of the things that especially if you identify as a solopreneur or a small business, we need to be, I guess, crisis proofing our business. We need to build things that we can scale back if we need to, or we can step away from, which is one of the reasons why I have a team now.
Yeah.
Right. Back in the day when I was first getting started, you tell yourself, I can't afford a team. Now I couldn't afford to run this business without a team. So, things like that, things that we have to consider that we don't want to think about, the unpleasant stuff, but we need to think about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other podcast episode in itself, isn't it? Like how to make this business resilient. And I think, there's a lot of conversation right now about recession and recession proofing, and, so far so good, right? We're kind of drifting through, but there is, COVID was a great example of how something hit us all of a sudden. And I, weirdly enough, my business had one of its best years in 2020. And I thought for sure that was going to be the end of things for me, right? All these business owners who are like, oh my God, my business is going under. And actually, I built a whole program around resilience. And what we need to do right now when we're facing a potential crisis is actually level up, right? And is find the ways that we're not riding the crest of the wave down just because we got scared.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. And yeah, there is a lot of talk here as well about recession. I think there's a lot of fear right now, actually, funnily enough, as we're coming out of a pandemic. I think there's a lot of fear. And I would agree with you. I mean, our business, it's funny that it has been, pandemic plus recession, economic crisis. We've grown 20 to 30% year over year since our inception. And I think that's partly because of some of the strategies that we put into place. We're very in tune with the landscape. But I also think that's just because I expected it to. Like, I come from the sales world. And so if a business isn't growing, it's dying. And I'm happy to talk more about how we made that growth happen if you'd like. But in my mind, I always expected the numbers to go up and not down. And every year that happens. And so, it's something that I think when we're expecting the worst, that's what we experience, right? When we're living in fear, when we're living from this place of, oh my God, hanging on for dear life, it's not going to be joyful. So, you can make millions of dollars, but none of that really matters if you're not actually enjoying the experience of being your own boss, right? If it's super stressful, if it's keeping you up every night, maybe it's not for you, or maybe it's not for you the way you've designed it.
We grew up, and I'm sure, you can relate to this too. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but I expect we're about the same age, and we grew up in an era where our parents encouraged us to find stability, right? Get a good job. I remember I consulted into public sector. And I remember my dad saying to me once, "Oh, isn't that great that you're consulting into the government? Because now you can get a good government job." I'm like, I would slit my wrists in like, because to me, the satisfaction and the impact and the closeness to change that I get from the work I do now is so incredibly important to me, because I can't spend 10 hours a day doing something that I just can't relate to, or is not joyful, or is not, innovative or challenging me in some way on an educational level. So I love to hear that from you, because it resonates a lot, but that's why we're doing what we do. And so the flip side to that, that a lot of people will worry about is like, well, what about the risk, right? What about the risk? And what about the position you're putting yourself in? So we have to find this way to fill those little gaps. And I think that part of that is that I would rather have all the control over my own growth and, understand enough about how to get there than leave that in the hands of someone else.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing about risk. There's risk around us every single day. I mean, I have clients that I've coached whose partners have steady jobs, and then they go in one day only to find out they don't have that job anymore. And I remember that. I worked in travel right before 9/11. It's funny, I actually quit my first travel job. I quit right before 9/11, literally weeks before. I gave them my notice and I went traveling myself. But shortly after that, all of my friends, the best salespeople, all lost their jobs. People who had been there for years, people who had built the company. And so, we just don't know what's coming around the corner. But I can tell you that this is going to sound corny, but a belief in yourself and your abilities will carry you a long way. I'm with you. I could not see myself doing anything else. This isn't just a passion for me. This is a way of life. I wake up in the morning thinking about my mamas. I go to bed at night thinking about my mamas, thinking about how we could do things better, how we can be more supportive, offer more guidance. One of the things that we implemented in the last couple of years was, I was just like, some of these women that can't afford our upper level coaching programs, they still need the accountability. So what can we do for them? And so we brought in these mentors in our community, our women that were doing really well in business. And we said, we'd really love for you to host accountability groups. You're not coaching, right? Because that's a whole other skill set. But let's bring people together in small groups. Let's let them share what they're working on. And let's help facilitate accountability so that more of our women are reaching more of their goals. I didn't know that's what we needed in the early days, so I couldn't have, implemented something like that. But through trial and error and time and growth, you start to see the areas that you could be doing better. Now, we don't charge for that, so I can't draw a direct line between that and revenue. But what I can tell you is when people hear what we charge for the community, they don't question it at all, because of all of these supports that we've built in to know, oh, I get to meet with my own little group every month that's organized for me, and I just show up and they hold me accountable. Like, that's pretty amazing. I don't know a lot of communities that are doing things that way. So, staying growing through recession means staying innovative and resourceful, and really like tapping into what your people need in this moment, because what they need today is very different than what they needed 2 years ago, let's say.
Totally agree. And I think a lot of people go into, building a membership and they're like, I just need to keep creating more and more content and more content. And it actually works against them, because what ends up happening is your members start to feel like they're behind. And the association with your program starts to feel negative, where they're constantly looking at it and going, oh, I wanted to catch up on this thing and I wanted to catch up on that thing. And I just I feel crummy about myself. So what makes a membership stick, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, is truly the relationships. It's that's what will keep them coming back. The content will keep them coming back until they're done, or until they just get too overwhelmed by it that they never feel like they're making any progress, and then that's it. But it's the relationships, it's the ongoing opportunities to feel seen, known, heard, et cetera, et cetera. So when I see a lot of people building memberships that are just like, oh, great, this will be a great hands-off business model for me, and I'll just dump more and more content into the membership. And that's not what people want.
It's definitely not what people want, and it doesn't set them up for success. In fact, we did better when we cleaned out our content library and we reorganized it for them and gave them a more clear path to, what to learn, what to focus on. So I would agree with you 100%. It's the relationships, but it's not just what people think. It's not just like, oh, you're going to find your business bestie. It is truly like the women in my community, they hire each other. They promote each other's webinars. They're sending each other referrals constantly, not just because they know each other from a community, but because they truly believe in that other person's program or product. And so that's the kind of stuff you can't buy that. You can't buy raving fans of your brand. You can't buy testimonials. You have to earn it. And so and I think here's where I'll speak to, not only growth, but how we've been able to sustain and keep this membership so strong, in the hundreds for 8 years. We've had members in the hundreds for over coming up to 8 years this fall. And a big part of it is our values. They're on our website. We live by them every day. We remind our members of them. We actually do a lot to reinforce them in the community. And one of our greatest values is give first, take second, right? You are here to learn, yes, but what do you have to offer? All of these women have amazing life experiences and business experiences and skill sets that are allowing them to thrive. And we want them to share it, which is funny. Most business coaches would say, like, aren't you worried? Like, what if there's other business coaches in your community? I'm like, I welcome that. I welcome women who have all kinds of different backgrounds and skills, because, nobody does it the way I do it. But that's what they love. They are actually there to pay it forward and, soak up some of that goodness for themselves. But the minute we can spot, and we can see it a mile away, unfortunately, it's very easy to spot someone who joins the community to take.
Yes.
We're keenly aware of that. We keep an eye on them. And usually they do something that goes against our values or, goes against our guidelines. They have to be removed. Let's just say it. Takers never win. They're going to get found out eventually. And so we're very aware of what keeps a community healthy, and we foster that. We reinforce that. And every year at the end of the year, we give away cash and coaching to our members in the form of what we call the Mompreneur Fund. So it's an annual grant program. Everyone's eligible to apply except for the person who won the year before. And every year we give away tens of thousands of dollars back into the hands of our members who are going to take that grant and do amazing things with it. You know, that's what we believe in, is how can we create more opportunities to pay it forward? And that's why our people stay, because they're not finding that in other people's programs or communities.
No, 100%. And I we get so sidetracked by like the lure of content marketing and just make content and that's easy. And that's gonna, oh my God, do you know how hard it is to build an audience and get visibility through just creating content? And I'm like, look, this is easy, you guys. If you want to build your business, if you want to get new clients, just be helpful, right? Just be helpful. Just go and show up and connect with people and like find communities where you're actually interested in participating as a member and be helpful. That's it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well,
so true.
And I'm like, you have to find the people to drag in to your sphere before your content makes any sense, like is even worthwhile, because most of the time it's there to help people who have found you know you better, but they still have to find you. And so it seems too easy for them to, but I'll tell you, I built the first year of this business just being of service in one group, and not even intentionally so. It was just a group that I liked being part of, and they were kind of like my peers, and there were people that I really enjoyed, and the woman who ran the group had the same values as me, and I knew her personally, and so I just hung out there. And to this day, 7 years later, that community still sends me referrals. It doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't existed for years, but the people that I met there and knew there still have this respect for me and send me referrals. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just like showing up and being helpful, right? I'm like, it's that easy, right? It is that easy.
It is.
And you don't even have to use it as an intentional strategy. You just have to be yourself.
Yeah, 100%. You know, the minute that I realized that the more I cared for other people, the more my business would grow, that was a game-changing moment for me. And it sounds cliche and it sounds cheesy. We're all told to care, but truly, like, there was a point where I went from, enrolling customers and serving them as a coach to loving these women and genuinely treating them like I would treat my closest friends, always having them top of mind, and coming from that place of creating value in someone else's life well before you're being paid to do so. Like, if somebody says, hey, I've got a business, I'm curious to know what you think about it, I will still, to this day, even though, technically I'm a lot bigger than I was when I started, I'll offer people my time. I'm not above that. And I don't think any of us should be, because things can change quickly in our business, in the landscape and what we do. And so it is never going to be a wrong move to offer your value to other people, and doing so without expectation, right? I think that's key.
The minute you let your ego drive, I'm above this, is the minute your business starts to be affected. Okay, I could probably talk to you for another 2 hours, but we are coming up on time. I have a question that I ask everybody, this real people, real business. So I would like to know, what's the difference between what we hear out there in the business world and what's real?
Yeah, I saw this question on your list and I was like, oh, this is a great question. And okay, what is the biggest example? You might have to edit this out. The biggest example that comes to mind for me is there is no such thing as an overnight success story. Success comes from consistency and focus, period. So I always say to my women, like, if all you can do is get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other, just do that, right? You don't have to overhaul the whole thing in one go. Just focus on that next right action. A lot of my people are really, overly fixated on things like, well, what do I post on social media? And what's the messaging? What do I say to get them in? And I keep saying, it's not an exact science. just show up for them. Truly, just show up for them. Show up when you feel great about your business and show up when you feel shit. Because guess what? They have those days too. And if you can do that, if you can just try to stay consistent, no one expects you to do it every day either. As I say, I've had times where I've had to step away from the business, or I've had whole seasons where I just don't feel like being visible. But I remember that there are people out there who need me and they don't need me to be perfect. So if I can just stay consistent, stay focused on the company goals right now, that's my job, right? As CEO, I have a team relying on me. I have hundreds of members, dear clients, all relying on my ability to show up. Say, related to that, take care of yourself first. Stop telling yourself you can't afford it. Stop telling yourself self-care is a luxury. It's not. I've seen far too many women have to close their doors temporarily or permanently because they were not able to care for themselves first. They hit burnout or, physical illness. And it's just not worth it. Life is too short. If you want to hit your business goals, then this thing here, this machine's got to be working. So,
yeah. And the whole underlying conversation there is about worthiness and our interpretation of our worthiness, because we often see ourselves as, again, our generation grew up under a generation that absolutely shunned paying any attention to yourself. And it was selfish. It was greedy. It was, unbecoming to spend money on yourself, to prioritize your time. We were valuable people if we served others and put them first. And that was admirable. That's changed. We can't run businesses when we are on fumes. So I'm so glad.
I think it still needs to change even more. And maybe that's because I mostly serve moms. A lot of them have young kids. And I see two camps. I see the ones that get it early and are actively trying, even if we're not getting, self-care perfect, we're trying, we're scheduling it in. I say to them, nobody's too busy for a 20-minute walk every single day. You can always find 20 minutes. Yeah, you might have to ask for help, or yeah, you might have to take the kids with you. But guess what? Everybody has the same hours in the day. If you make a choice, it will happen. If you prioritize, it will happen. So I see people making the choice, and then I see people, kind of going by default, which is to not prioritize themselves. And unfortunately, those are the ones whose businesses don't last. Those are the ones who eventually it just feels too heavy and too hard. And yeah, so I'm a big believer that success is really about thriving in all areas of life, not just in one area. And it's one of the reasons why I prioritize my own health, prioritize, family time, as I mentioned. That's what I'm doing this for.
Yeah, I have two teenagers and I barely see them anymore. So our family time has become like, when are you going to be home and can we maybe have dinner together? So yeah, it's a new phase of life for sure. And, I've recently shifted my own business to working with women who are like mid 40s and later, because we have really different needs now. And like the prioritization of rest, of mental breaks, and we're starting to look towards the end, as opposed to like being hyper focused on the beginning, where everyone likes to, like, it's sexy to talk about starting up. Well, what are we doing with this business? What's the legacy we're creating? So like, I also think, where you are in your life is a very important consideration to what you're doing to take care of yourself too. So yeah, great conversation. We're coming up on time. So can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Sure. So if you love podcasts, then I highly recommend you listen to mine. It's called The Business of Thinking Big, and you can find me on Instagram at Lianne Kim Coach. And would it be okay, Stephanie, if I shared a little freebie with your listeners?
I think they would love that.
Awesome. So we touched on, keeping your standards high, building a business full of dream clients. I have a free masterclass that teaches you exactly how to do that. It's especially geared to mom entrepreneurs, people who tend to not value themselves as much as they should. So if you're interested in learning from me there, you can go to mamasandco.com/dream. And if you're okay with it, we can link to it in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. We'll put all of the links in the show notes. I think everybody needs to be able to find you. I'm about to sign up for the membership myself after looking at the sales page earlier today.
Oh,
I'm excited to learn more about the community and to get in there. But thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation. When I listen to our interviews, I'm always thinking about these, where's the great soundbite? Where's the quote that we're going to use? And I'm like, oh my God, there's too many this time.
Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on your show. And I think the work that you're doing is amazing as well. It sounds like we're really aligned in our mission. So yeah, just appreciate you so much.
But this is how we make those relationships, and we continue on that great work. And really what we are is a big network of wonderful people doing wonderful work that need to know about each other. And this is how we do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, well, that's a wrap. And I'm so happy we had the opportunity to chat with Lianne today to hear more about how her business came to be, her experiences along the way, and what the future of her business entails. And thank you for tuning into this episode of the Real People, Real Business Show, where we get the real entrepreneurial stories and journeys that you can relate to. The show notes, resources, and links from this episode are available on my website and also on my social media platforms. Thank you again for joining us today. If you've enjoyed today's content, I would love for you to give us a review on whatever platform you're on to help us share these genuine stories with an even bigger audience. Until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep being real.